Salutations everyone, this is Razor bringing you guys another Destiny video where today I'm going to be using a scout rifle. Here's the good old guy right here. It's not exotic, it's not legendary, it's just a rare, unupgraded, almost untouched scout rifle. I think this is probably my third time using it. And the first two times I actually got some pretty good scores, but this was the best out of the little sample size that I gave it. And with the recent buff that the update that I mentioned in my last video, where the scout rifles got a buff and the assault rifles all got a small nerf at base damage, I decided to give the scout rifle a try. And I actually hadn't gotten even a rare scout rifle, nothing but uncommons, and so I hadn't used it before the patch, at least not for a long time, not since I at least hit level 20. So once I got one, I was like, all right, I'm going to give this thing a shot. And I got to say, guys, the results were encouraging. I'm having a much better time here with this completely normal, rare, unupgraded scout rifle than I am having with my legendary assault rifle, at least in some maps. Here on this map, your bigger lines of sight maps with not a whole lot of corners. Anything that you feel like oh, I could use a sniper rifle on this map is a map that you can use the scout rifle on. Anything with not too many corners. Doesn't really matter the game mode outside of free-for-all, since because of free-for-all, no one's on the same team, so everyone's going to be pretty much within close proximity with a lot of carnage going on. And that's something that I've also noticed about the Crucible, is that we aren't getting a very good mix of maps. Here I am on the Shores of Time, which pops up, a decent amount of time, but a lot of maps I'm just getting over and over again, like Twilight Gap, and I'm not good at the names, but the ones on Mars I'm getting a lot. I've only been on the Moon one 3 times out of the, 60, 70 Crucible games that I've played. Actually, probably 70 based off my Crucible mark, 70 something games. I've been on the Moon 3 times, and I've been on that Venus map. That's not this one, Asylum, I think. I've been on that one only 3 times. It seems like half of my matches in all of Crucible have been on 2 maps, and that is absolutely ridiculous. But Shores of Time shows up a decent amount of time, and I really like this map, especially when people are hiding in corners with one-shot kill, exotic shotguns. But, that's just what's going to happen. But anyways, the scout rifle, really good. With the buff, it got a better headshot damage multiplier, and base damage was also increased across the board by 6%, I think. I forget. I mentioned it in my last video. But it got a buff all around, and very, very much needed. This thing at mid to long range is a better bet than your assault rifle, especially when you aim for the head, which I would highly recommend. That's not always the case in most competitive first-person shooter multiplayer games. You don't have the luxury to aim for the head, or you don't need to, but for this gun, definitely aim for the head. Even if you're gonna miss every once in a while, the extra precision damage that you do get for nailing them in the cranium is definitely worth it. So aim for the head. You're gonna get some view kick and some grenades thrown your way. That's really gonna, really sour your experience, but for the most part, aiming for the head is really what sets this gun apart from your assault rifles or your hand cannons. Just because of the rate of fire and the magazine size are greater than the hand cannon, as well as the range. They won't have as much impact, but obviously more so than the assault rifle, so you're going to be giving the enemy a little bit more view kick, and the damage is going to be on par with the hand cannon, but with a greater fire rate and greater magazine most of the time. And it can help you go up against all these exotic and legendary weapons, which, if you're me, is the only types of weapons you ever get to go against. And it is really, really frustrating when everyone else has a fully auto shotgun with ridiculous range and enormous power, or assault rifles with a lot of power and no recoil. It can be very frustrating in this game. I've definitely had more struggles in this game in doing consistently well than any other first-person shooter shooter that I've come across in the last 20 years. And that's because it's really broken. It's unbalanced, but this patch definitely helped. It doesn't make up for the fact that exotic and legendary weapons completely outclass everything else with these special evos and upgrades that they get that normal rare weapons do not have the opportunity to get. And it's something that needs to be addressed. And with the recent update that nerfed the Vexed Mythoclast, it is still a very, very strong gun from what I hear in PvP. But with the nerf that it got to, a 33% damage reduction, it is not very good in PvE anymore. And that's kind of ludicrous to have something be so insanely OP across the board. Then you change it to where it's still really good in PvP, but garbage in PvE. I think it needs to be changed. I think the two need to be separated. This is a problem that we see in PvP games a lot in MMOs or stuff where your PvE and PvP stuff crosses over. It has a lot of balancing issues, and Destiny is no exception to this rule. So I think the easiest and the best way to go about this would to be wall them off separately. Either have different weapons that you can only use in the Crucible and weapons that you can only use in PvE, or just give them different stats depending on if it's PvP or PvE. I know it sounds, a little silly, but as far as balance and competitiveness goes and just overall fun replayability of this game, it definitely would help. And I can't think of any other change that would be easier to do and is as beneficial as walling them off, as treating them separately as far as the guns or the stats of those guns go. I mentioned a lot of changes I think need to be made in my last video if you guys hadn't seen that. But the buffs and the changes and the nerfs they have made have been improvements, but there needs to be more. Bungie knows that there needs to be more. There's changes that they weren't able to make in their latest update that will be made sometime in the near future, and hopefully even more changes than the ones that they probably have in mind that would be most beneficial to the longevity of the Crucible and Destiny as a whole. Scout rifles are actually viable now, which is something that I really couldn't say for all intents and purposes before. And aiming with the head, getting that extra precision damage is really, really crucial to setting, the scout rifle and the hand cannon apart from the assault rifles, which are going to have the higher rate of fire. They're going to have the larger magazines. They're going to have less recoil, as is the nature of those weapons. And to make scout rifles and hand cannons viable, they need to have greater range, which they do have. They need to be better at precise damage, which now is more exemplified than in the past pre-patch. And they also need to change the damage. If you take a look at any sort of rarities across the board, as long as you stay within the same rarity, the damage is going to be pretty much the same across the board throughout hand cannon, scout rifles, and assault rifles. Now, the only thing that sets that apart is the damage over range, which the scout rifle and the hand cannon will have an advantage of. But when they're doing the same base damage at short ranges and up close, even though the assault rifle should have the advantage since it would have the better hip spread and have the higher fire rate, winning a battle against an assault rifle of the same rarity with a scout rifle or a hand cannon is pretty much a moot point and just does not happen. I've also mentioned things that should be changed with the grenades and with the superpowers, and the map rotation definitely needs to be fixed when I've only played 2 maps, a total of 3 times each, and have 2 other maps comprised almost half, or probably more than half of my playing time. But anyways, scout rifles are viable. They also need to change the reward system. Obviously, it seems like the last place guy has a guaranteed item. The top one gets items the least amount of times. But anyways, final score here is 24 and something. 7 assists, 5 captures. I still play the objective, even though it's not that beneficial in Destiny. But anyways, those are my thoughts. That's what I think. Scout rifles, go ahead and give them a try now. They are viable. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will see you next time.